Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name is Such.
And my name is James.
You feel excited?
I forgot to bring the poppers.
Oh, party poppers.
Yeah, mate.
You did a bit of a Q&A YouTube live stream for the Patreons last week. But, I think it's probably presumptuous to assume that people know what we're doing and whatever. But yeah.
It's new
back
season.
Back to another season, back to more content.
Should we introduce ourselves properly for the new season? Who are you, sir?
I'm Suj.
Yeah, we got that bit, but who are you?
I am the world's greatest FPL player.
At missing the deadline.
Nah, no one, they just haven't seen my potential yet. I'm the world's greatest. Nah. Just a West Ham fan chatting the shit about the FPL. What about you? Ready to rock and roll?
Yeah, it's similar, except not the greatest ever FPL manager. Tottenham fan from your troubles. Although I'm very excited, Suj.
You should be.
Yeah, I know.
You should be.
We're cooking, I think the kids would say.
Yeah, for sure. I think look, we'll cover off all of the teams, and just so people know what we're doing today, we're going to be looking not necessarily A to Z, but first to 20th in the Premier League, all the clubs, what they've been doing over the transfer window. We know there's been FPL price reveals over the weekend, starting on Friday all the way through to today. The game hasn't officially opened at the time of recording, but we think tomorrow it probably will, because by the end of today, we'd have had 20 odd
like it. You can currently go in, you can set two-factor authentication now. So well done, FPL, for getting that in place. And you're going to be asked to set a new password.
Perfect.
So that functionality is now available. That's only become available today. So if you're sitting there thinking, I want to get the lowest ID possible, go in and change your password now would probably be a good little.
By the time we're recording this, it's probably too late. There's probably 100,000 people that have done it. Wouldn't surprise me.
And keep going.
Yeah.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to look more at teams, because what I've seen a lot over the weekend is lots of, okay, we've got pricing for this person, let's compare this. And we've nearly got all the pricing now for all the big players, except a few kind of late transfers, such as Gabriel Jesus has moved this morning. We are going to talk about pricing later in the week. We're going to talk about chip strategy. Tomorrow we're going to have a kind of deep dive into fixtures. What I'm going to do is, it's a Monday, Suj, because very much Mondays will be our Gameweek review pods. We haven't spoken about the teams for a month. Where are they at? What are they trying to do? Who's in? Who's out? What's the potential impact? Because it's all right saying player X has joined team Y, but have they lost 2 or 3 other players? Are there more other players coming in? Is there more competition for places? So I wanted to do an overview of where the teams are at the moment. Yeah,
it's fair. And some will be quicker and easier than others. And we'll start top of the tree, shall we, with Manchester City.
Erling Haaland.
Yeah, I think looking at City's business, they have potentially widened the gap. I think they're definitely got to be favourites for the league this year. If you look at the players leaving, Fernandinho and Jesus being replaced by Calvin Phillips and Haaland, those are 2 upgrades straight away. And so, I just can see that. And I think it's going to level up some of the other players in and around as well. If you're KDB and you now look up and you see Haaland in front of you to play through balls for or stick it on a sixpence for him, you've got to want to level up your game a little bit. I look at City and I just think that they have the potential to walk it. Not walk it, because other teams are really good in terms of Liverpool, but I think they look formidable is a good way of putting it.
City and Liverpool both, if either have a serious drop off, the chances are the other one will walk it. No, it's certainly valid to say that. Haaland is guarantee, isn't he?
Of the title?
No, in terms of him and his ability. What I'm saying is, this time last year we sat here with and this is interesting. This time last year we sat here a lot and we talked about Lukaku a lot. We spoke about Ronaldo a lot. Kind of feels like, Lukaku's obviously, it went so badly he's gone back to Inter. Would I'd point out he was Chelsea's top goal scorer in all competitions last season. We'll come back onto that. Ronaldo's obviously saying he wants out of United, but we're not really looking at him as an opening day FPL asset, I don't think, anyway. Haaland is guarantee he's going to get the goals, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Have we got any doubt about this at all?
First game of the season on the Sunday, 4:30. I'll be going to the London Stadium, and I might wear a nappy, mate. That's how confident I am in that Haaland will be scoring goals.
What are you
for
saying?
those people that don't understand, Man City are obviously coming to our place first day of the season.
So you're the last game of game week 1. So if you're on your way home and you're 19th, are you happy with that?
Probably.
But I don't think he guarantees Manchester City being better. There is one obvious flaw, I think, in Haaland in terms of, is this going to work? And I think it obviously is going to work, but it might take a little bit more time. One of City's greatest strengths under Guardiola is obviously their pressing from the front.
Mm-hmm.
He's not it. He's not it. And I think one of the interesting things, I picked up something Luke said, Luke Disable. He's very in the, I was going to say he's in the know. He's not in the know, but he's very astute at understanding Guardiola and his tactics. And one of the things he's pointed out is that he thinks Mahrez might not play a lot to start with. And that's because Mahrez has a similar issue in terms of pressing from the front. So Luke's of the opinion that Haaland will probably have players around him like Foden who will go and do the legwork off the ball so City can still go and press from the front. But it's certainly a different setup what we're looking at. The fact that Julian Alvarez, who signed in January, is now going to stay there permanently and is also an out-and-out number 9, basically, suggests that City are regularly going to play with a striker. Doesn't mean we're never going to see a Foden or a Grealish in a false 9. There will be occasions, I'm sure, where we do. But this is definitely a little bit of change of tact in terms of they've got one player in there now who we know if he plays all the games, he'll be their top goal scorer. Yep. This is not necessarily top FPL point scorer in terms of goals scored in the team. He will be their top goal scorer. He will be their main output, which obviously didn't really place Aguero last year. Now they've done that. Guardiola said last year they couldn't replace Aguero. They've arguably got a player in who's going to be better.
Mm-hmm. And Calvin Phillips joins, which I think is a great little signing for them. I think obviously a very simple replacement for Fernandinho. I think he suits their style. He sits. He doesn't necessarily need to get forward too much. Just give it to the better talented players. He's the right profile. I think it's a very good signing for them, to be honest with you. I think he'll do well there.
Yeah, he's different profile from Rodri in terms of you'll see a little bit more directness, I think, from Phillips in his distribution as such. There's a lot of people, and this is on trend, I think, for the Champions League teams at the moment. There's a lot of, not so much Chelsea because they need incomings, but there's a lot at the moment in terms of, well, Phillips isn't going to play. Calvin Phillips definitely is going to play. And I'll explain a bit more why on tomorrow's pod when we look at the fixtures in terms of why there's no doubt people like Phillips and Richarlison who's coming to Tottenham and stuff like that. These guys are going to get minutes, and there's no doubt about it. Plus, there's every scope to say that City might move more regularly towards a 4-2-3-1 and use Phillips as part of a double pivot alongside Rodri. Is Phillips going to displace Rodri as first choice? No, I think Rodri's been absolutely super over the last 18 months or so. But yeah, he's going to play plenty. And City had to get another one in there because they've released Fernandinho, and I think there's been a reluctance to use him over the last 12 months anyway, but he's been a brilliant servant for City.
Yeah.
The feeling is incoming-wise, there's probably not going to be a lot more from City, but the big speculation, I'm sure many of you will have heard around a couple more, is Bernardo Silva looks like he's pushing for Barcelona, but I can't see that happening because Barcelona's priority looks to be to raise the money for Rafinha, and City want a stupid amount of money for Bernardo, which is understandable. But Raheem Sterling does look like he's going to go to Chelsea. So if Sterling does go, are they going to replace and look for another forward player? They might, because it does look a little bit like it's one out, one in for City at the moment. So I know a few people, we spoke about it a lot last year in terms of their bench looking a lot thinner, not looking as stronger, but their younger players are a year older now. People like Delap, who came on and had a real impact for England under-19s in their final win on Friday night. You've got McAtee, Cole Palmer, who Guardiola's definitely spoken about using more this year. So I think the younger players will be a bit more involved and more integrated as well. Listen, whoever finishes above City will probably win the league, right?
There's strong rumours that they may go after Cucurella if and when Sterling moves on and what have you. Now, he'd be a great asset, surely, at City. Which
that in turn would probably mean that Zinchenko gets let go.
Yep.
And then you've got competition. Zinchenko is competition, but he's certainly not the first choice. Cucurella will stake a claim to obviously be that first choice.
Cancelo can switch out to the right.
Cancelo goes to the other side. What does it mean for Cole Walker? I mean, we're probably moving into a stage with Cole Walker where where he's not going to play 60 games a season, for example. So, yeah, they're only looking stronger for me, City.
Have you been impressed with Liverpool? I'm underwhelmed, if I'm honest with you. Darwin Nunez is a good signing, but it's a lot of money, and
it is a lot of money.
I don't know enough about him, so I'm probably
and I would admit that
underwhelmed a bit in that he might come in and be great. I was disappointed to see Sadio Mane go. I do think it weakens them, but then Luis Diaz, when he came in January, proved what a player he is. So they're not lighter on numbers, maybe just different personnel that we're not as experienced with, perhaps.
No, and also obviously the fact they bought Diaz in January, we've already known that he's hit the ground running completely in terms of style and league, and one of the assessments we made last year was he's basically coming in as Mane's longer term replacement, be it now or for when Mane goes in next year. Obviously that's phased and happened now, which I think Liverpool were more than happy to do because of the impact that Diaz has made so instantly. Mane's certainly a loss to the league, right? He's been phenomenal. Great signing for Bayern Munich. But Diaz's impact and obviously the introduction of Nunez means that really, like for like, is not really correct, but they're still in terms of the same depth quality in terms of what they've got. They've still got Jota, they've still got Roberto Firmino, who Klopp loves. Again, he's probably not first choice now. I think we probably all see that, but still a major impact in terms of his involvement. And there was a couple of things at the end of last season and some things I've read in the summer that suggests we might see a bit of a switch of formation for Liverpool next year. Now, Klopp, I think a sort of statistic was posted that of around about his 330 Premier League games, however he's managed, in 300 of them he's used the 4-3-3 that we're most accustomed to. But there were times last year, particularly chasing games. Think of Everton at home, Tottenham at home, Wolves at home last day, and also the Champions League final with Real Madrid, where they did move to a 4-2-3-1 later in the game. And supposedly there's been big meetings between the coaching team this year in terms of trying to evolve and be a little bit different. And I wonder if we might see that more from Liverpool next year. There's also a concern at the moment that they're a bit light in the midfield area, which I don't necessarily subscribe to, because you've still got Fabinho, Henderson, Thiago, Keita when he's fit. Curtis Jones is a big year for him. And obviously Harvey Elliott missed basically the whole of last season as well. So I wouldn't say they're light. I'd say there's a regression of quality once you're beyond the first three to the younger two, and then perhaps Keita, if you will. But we might see, I think, more often next year, Fabinho and Thiago in a two, and then four in front of that. Now, what the impact of that potentially is on Salah, Diaz, as presumably the two wide players, and the two fullbacks, is a little bit of an unknown. It's something just to be a little bit aware of. In terms of Nunez, like you, I hadn't seen a lot of him, but I watched extended highlights of the two semi-finals, quarter-finals, that Liverpool had with Benfica in the Champions League. One of the things that struck me that I hadn't realised was he runs the channels much more than I thought. So I was kind of looking at it as he's similar to Haaland. He's going to be a number 9. You can feed it into him from wide areas. He's dominant in the air and stuff. But actually, he'll run with it down the channels. And particularly in that first leg against Liverpool, he basically split his first half into two halves, where he attacked the right-hand side in the first half of the first half and the left side in the second half. So you might see that rather than being concerned that, say, Salah and Diaz will just be on the outside of him, actually he can stretch into the channels and they can attack the inside of that still. So I wouldn't expect a regression in Salah's numbers, for example. But there are certain things in Liverpool stylistically that might change a little bit this season. Don't expect them to do any more business, by the way.
No. Chelsea, obviously nothing in through the door, but they're close to Sterling. They've had a bid accepted for Rafinha. They've clearly got money to spend, and I think Todd Bowley's intent on doing some business.
Does he know how to do it, though?
I don't know.
No, nobody does really, do they?
Yet, but I mean, look, he's had his bid accepted by Leeds, so he got that far.
Because you know he's doing it all now, right?
Yeah.
Like Buck and Czech and all that, and Marina, I always forget her surname, have all gone.
Yeah.
He's taking it all on.
Yep. But I think the reason he hasn't got Rafinha is because Rafinha doesn't want to go there, not because he hasn't been able to negotiate with Leeds. True. And I think Raheem Sterling, we're pretty sure, is getting closer and closer. So I think he'll be all right to do it. Their problem is the defence, though. It's not the attack, and they need to get some defenders through, Jules Koundé or whoever they decide they want to get.
I think the issue they might find is it looks like they're trying to go big. I feel like he's trying to make a statement signing as well. We have heard some Ronaldo murmurs. We know we'll come on to him in a bit. Rafinha, yes, still agreed, but he's holding out for Barcelona, as I already mentioned. You're getting people linked defensively like Matthias de Ligt, Bastoni at Inter Milan, probably a little bit cold because he wants to stay in Italy, but they're trying to go right at the top end of the market. There's a bit of concern, I feel, from, like, I know Gary Mantle, our new Chelsea correspondent, already spoken about this, a little bit of concern that they're going high, they might not get what they want and end up panicking and doing things like they did when Courtois went and, there's 70 million on Kepa and getting the wrong type of profile player or spending too much on it.
Yeah, they've got returning players like Conor Gallagher and Breuer and stuff. They won't be bad replacements if they have to put up with that rather than buying the wrong player. Whether or not that will happen,
I think Sterling would be a super signing for them.
I do as well.
Because the one thing that team obviously consistently has a problem with is finding one individual who will post 20 goals for them. And Raheem Sterling is capable of being a 1 in 2 if he plays regularly enough, and I'm sure he would for Chelsea. And their wide players have not contributed for all their talents and varying talents. None of them have produced a high enough level of returns. One of the questions I think we had was from FPL Harry saying, like, who do you think would be a better signing for Chelsea, Rafinha or Sterling? Now, if you ask me which one do I prefer as a player, Rafinha. Which one do I think is better for Chelsea? Probably Sterling. Because of exactly what I said, he'll put them goal numbers out there. Because one of the things I felt this time last year was, and I said it enough, was if Lukaku doesn't do the business, they won't challenge for the title. If he was going to be the man that was going to score 20, 25 goals, they could be involved in it. Because the rest of them, the way they were defensively, said that they could be. But the problem looking at that Champions League winning team was who's going to stand out and be the Salah or whomever for Chelsea. And there's that doubt now. Of course, there has to be. None of us think Havertz are getting 20 goals, do we?
No.
We don't.
And Rafinha, we had another question in as well, whether or not Chelsea should stay in when he clearly wants to go to Barcelona. I understand that sometimes you feel a little bit let down when a player doesn't want to join your club. But the reality is, if Chelsea buy Rafinha and he has even one good season with Chelsea,
might go next summer.
He'll be worth more money. So just treat it as a transaction from that kind of point of view. So I don't think it's a bad bit of business. 60, 65 million. Can he become a £100 million player, Rafinha?
He's capable.
Yeah. So then it's a worthy investment if you believe he will step up. So I know sometimes you want players to want to wear your shirt, but listen, they're all mercenaries these days. So you do what you need to advance your club. Spurs,
I'm sure, by the way, if Barcelona can't come up with the money, which might hinge quite a lot on what happens with Frankie de Jong, then Rafinha obviously will go to Barca if they can find the money. If they don't, I imagine he will go to Chelsea because it sounds like as well that Leeds want to do the deal with Chelsea because Chelsea have put the money
cash,
whereas Barcelona are doing the Barcelona thing at the moment.
They're paying cash, yeah. Spurs, you got to be happy with your signings. I think everyone from the outside is looking at Spurs thinking, right, you mean business. I mean, a good defensive holding midfielder, a great left back.
He's been cleared, by the way.
Okay.
I was very reluctant to be shouting from the rooftops, but I will do a little bit more now. We're talking about Bissouma, obviously. He has been cleared of this assault charge.
And you've got Richarlison as well. I cannot wait for the fight between Richarlison and Conte because you know it's going to happen one game.
I'd just probably be Richarlison and Christian Romero day one of training, I should imagine. We've got some right shit-ass players now.
Yeah.
There's no more weak Spurs, certainly not. I mean, look at the profile of players that he's buying. Everyone seems to be like 6 foot and above, building a tall team as well as a better team as well. So, look, I mean, I think at the moment we've done the best business of anyone. There's 2 months of the window to go.
Agreed.
But I think we've made a great start. I think they've backed Conte. So we've spoken about it so much, haven't we? Will they actually back him? Otherwise, he's going to piss off. If he pissed off now, he's got no excuse. It's on him, isn't it? No. He's getting what he wants. Apparently, Richarlison was a player that specifically Antonio Conte really wanted when there was the option to look at other similar players. Richarlison was the one he wanted. And Tottenham obviously taking advantage of the financial situation at Everton, the fact that Everton had to get the deal done by the end of June, basically. and no one else was coming near Tottenham's valuation. I'm not convinced that Richarlison had his heart set on joining Tottenham, to be totally honest, but it's worked out for everybody. Bissouma is a player I've spoken about a lot on the pod. I think he's fantastic. Got an English backup goalkeeper as priority in terms of from a homegrown perspective. And Perisic, anyone who listened to the Euro pods last summer knows another player I absolutely adore and love. Obviously aging a little bit.
Yeah, short term, but it's all right.
But we certainly imagine he's going to come in as the first choice left wing back. Doesn't mean he's going to get 38 games. And there's more to come. Clement Longley deal apparently has been agreed for a loan from Barcelona. Was quite poor at Barcelona by all accounts, but kind of got his move to Barcelona through playing outstandingly well in a back three for Seville rather than the back four at Barcelona. So again, it's something Conte's identified. I think what's happened there is the players they wanted to go for at the top end of the market, similar to what I said with Chelsea, can't get near to. So they've taken the decision to get him in on loan, have a look at him and maybe go back for others next year. But there is a suggestion that Tottenham want at least one more centre-back. Jed Spence, we think is going to happen this week. I'd suggest if it's not happened by this time next week, it probably won't happen and Tottenham will look at other targets and they do want one more offensive player. But the squad looks so stacked now in terms of competitive. There will be a lot of outgoings and Dombele's going to go, Lo Celso's going to go.
Harry Winks.
Bergwijn apparently with Ajax. In the Dutch media, it's been reported this morning, it's been agreed, but the English media aren't confirming that at the moment. Harry Winks will be moved on. It will probably just be a loan. But Tottenham are looking to be quite ruthless about the business. The thing is, again, I'll speak about it more tomorrow, but with the way the Champions League is going to work this year in terms of the close proximity to the fixtures, you have to have a squad. It's like people go, you're buying Richarlison for a reserve. Richarlison will play 60, 70% of minutes for Tottenham and there will be rotation. I think actually this year, for the first time, it wouldn't surprise me if, say, we play Fulham at home in game week 6 and Harry Kane's a sub. I think we might actually get to that point this year. You wouldn't go into Fulham at home and go, you're playing Son, Richarlison, Kulusevski and shit yourself, would you?
No.
Get on with it, wouldn't you?
And Arsenal as well. I mean, just on Spurs, you mentioned on your Patreon Q&A, you think you've done the most to close the gap up to Liverpool and City. Still a gap, understandable, but I do think you're right in that you've really...
It's too much. What Sid is referring to, a question I had was like, can Spurs challenge for the title this year?
No.
Well, can we? In theory, yes.
Of course.
But and I think like Chelsea could go either way this year. Chelsea could do a lot of work in the market over the next 6 weeks or so and could challenge for the league. As it stands right now, they can't. And as it stands right now, I think they could drop off, i.e. finish outside the top four. And I think if the season was to start tomorrow, I think most people would look at it and go, Tottenham might finish third at the moment. I'm trying to be unbiased about it. I'm normally
I totally agree with you.
But I think a lot of people would think that.
I look at it from the outside. I think you should be very optimistic about the season ahead.
But to make up 19 points on Liverpool and Manchester City,
it's a lot.
I mean, can Tottenham make that up? 19 points is a lot, man. And you need both of them to have a drop off at the same time as well. I think that's a step too far, but get closer. Yeah.
Arsenal. I think Arsenal. My opinion is that their fans will feel like they're having a good transfer window in terms of Jesus coming in and Vieira.
You know, they're either on the ceiling or on the floor. That's how they are. I think
they'll be the most underwhelmed in that they'll get them better, but I don't think it's going to improve their league position anymore. I still think they'll be 5th or 6th come the end of the season. But caveat to that is that they are working hard to try and get more players. They obviously failed with the Rafinha bid, we think. So they've probably still got more money in the coffers. So they are looking to buy other players and they will bring other players in. They made an improvement from 2 years ago to last year. And I think they'll make a small improvement as a squad again, now that they've got some real togetherness. But I don't see it as a sea change. I don't see them jumping up a couple of places in the league or anything like that. I think they'll just be another step towards better.
I disagree, actually. I think, and I spoke about this before the North London derby a lot, I think Arsenal were heading in the right direction. It just might be a lot slower than some of their fans want. But
you thought that they were heading in a better trajectory than you were. Now you've gone and turned that around.
Yeah, but
completely.
at that time, I didn't know if we were going to finish above them, and I didn't know if Conte was going to stay as our manager and we'd do what we did. Whereas I did know at that time that there was no doubt that Arsenal were going to go and buy a centre forward this year, which they've done, and go and improve the squad, whether they finish 4th or 5th. Tottenham, it wasn't quite as clear. Jesus presumably is going to play as their central forward. I don't think he will in every game, but I think he will. And what I mean by that is I can see him playing on the right or the left in an odd game, because Arteta's like Guardiola. He likes to do the odd mad tactical thing sometimes. But generally he's going to play through the middle. We know they struggled to have a goal-scoring forward last year. Jesus' goals per minute's record in the Premier League is very good. Now, depending on which side of the fence you sit on, do you sit on the, well, his goals per minute ratio is great, so he'll do this for Arsenal? Or do you look at it and go, well, Kevin De Bruyne's not fucking finding him anymore. He's not going to get the same volume of chances. But they have a goal-scoring forward in there. There's no doubt about that.
I think they can still create chances. Saka, Odegaard, Smith Rowe. I think Martinelli. I think he'll still create a lot of chances.
The new boy, Fabio Vieira, is a super talent.
Yeah.
Now, my research of him, he looks a super player, like a lot of these upcoming Portuguese players. One of the concerns about him is he's only really had kind of one top-flight season. And the fact that he's only really had one is probably why Arsenal have stolen the march on a lot of others, because this could look like a really, really good buy. He can play in a multitude of positions, but ideally it looks like Arsenal want to use him as an 8, which probably means structurally their best setup would be Partey, Odegaard and Vieira as a 3, with Saka, Martinelli or another, and Jesus up front. That's the way they're probably looking to head towards. He can even play as a false 9, Vieira as well. He's a typical Portuguese diminutive player. He's got all the ability and the tools, but there's a bit of concern that it might have gone a little bit too fast for him in terms of his rise. But then I imagine he's probably on the crest of a wave at the moment, and you might find one of them, he starts really fast and comes down a little bit. But I mean, even his attacking numbers, the amount of assists and stuff.
Very good. Very good numbers.
Very impressive. It's a good signing for them. I think, and Adam Pritchard, I'm absolutely certain we'll speak about this on Correspondent Week. What Arsenal were trying to do is buy players who can play in a number of different positions in terms of rotational. They had to get a deeper squad in this year because obviously they've now got European competition as well. So we expect the likes of Saliba to get reintegrated into the squad. It looks like probably Lisandro Martinez, the Ajax centre-back, is going to join either Arsenal or Manchester United. It looks like one or the other. He can also play holding midfield role. So yeah, you're right. So they're going to do more business as well.
And talking about Martinez, he may end up at Manchester United. I mean, all quiet at Old Trafford, but I think the feeling at Old Trafford or for Manchester United for me right now is wait and see, because I think Ten Hag's come in, established himself. I think everybody that's seen him work so far has been impressed by Ten Hag.
Except Ronaldo.
Well, I don't read too much into that, to be honest with you.
He was meant to go back to training today, and they've let him off because he said he had family issues.
Oh, fair play.
Well, he might do, in fairness.
I think that's a blessing for them, to be honest with you, moving Ronaldo on.
Oh, I 100% agree with that.
But I think I can't judge what Manchester United are going to be like this season until they finish their business. They clearly want to buy players because they're trying to hijack this Martinez deal. Who's the other player that they've basically got over the line?
They've got this left back coming in from Feyenoord.
Malatya.
That's your guy,
yeah. And Eriksen's agreed verbally.
I
think they're going to do good business. If Romano says it.
I think De Jong will end up going there as well, although it's not quite the endorsement. It sounds like, and it's understandable as well, De Jong sounds like really wants to stay at Barcelona. Rather than a rejection of United, he wants to stay at Barca. These players, though, although there's certain upgrades, I look at it and go, let's say they get De Jong, let's get Eriksen and get Fernandes. Is that their team now? De Jong, Eriksen, Fernandes. Is that what it... Because that don't fix the problem.
I agree.
Like, that's better. It's better on the eye and all that. Get fucking annihilated on the counter-attack, mate. Honestly.
Let's wait and see what does happen with Manchester United, but they'll do business.
De Jong and Eriksen has similar traits, although De Jong is probably better from a deeper position starting-wise. they're both very good press-resistant players, which means that United can play from centre-back into midfield, and you know how Pogba would overdo it and stuff like that. De Jong is much better press-resistant. And yes, United should be excited about buying these players, but it still absolutely does not fix the fundamental problems that they have, A, in the back four, and B, in terms of a ball-winning midfield player. And unless they fix that, I don't see them finishing top four this year.
West Ham United.
Whereas I think Arsenal are ahead of them.
West Ham, obviously, we have two players signed. Alphonse Areola was already with the club, so that kind of doesn't really count. But then Nasser Aguerd has joined as well. I think it's worse with your own club because you hear all the rumours. Like, I don't hear all the Spurs rumours, whereas West Ham rumours get sent to me all the time. So you kind of get more frustrated with the stupidity that gets sent to you, really, with anything else. I think with West Ham, it's a wait and see, really, isn't it? I'm sure they want to get a striker in as backup for Antonio. I'm sure they're going to want to get another midfielder in. So it's just kind of wait and see. But I don't think there's going to be more than two more players coming in. I
feel like the best news of West Ham's window so far was Mo Salah's new contract at Liverpool.
Well, yeah, Bowen then stays, right? Someone else could come in. But
there was a lot of people reading between the lines that Liverpool would have made that move if Salah had decided to move on. And we assume, unless it's not going to be United, is it? Unless Chelsea do
big money
and change it. I mean, that's the biggest thing for you, isn't it? Still holding on to those two players, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Rice and Bowen, obviously.
There's a lot to be said for consistency, and I like the fact that my club won't just go and buy anyone if Moyes isn't sanctioned it and they think so. And that's been the case for a couple of years now. Give me no one, then shit. So I'm happy with that. But I think there will be one or two more in. And the Lingard saga has been going on for how long, mate?
Well, centre-back was an issue for you last year because of injuries primarily. But it sounds like
Bonner's fit again. Now we've got Aguerd.
You got to say it like Aguerd.
Okay.
No. It sounds like he's going to come in and be first choice as the left-sided centre-back. So presumably you're looking at him left of Zuma. You would think, but then there's scope again, I think, for you to move towards the back three, which perhaps at times Moyes wanted to use last year but couldn't because of availability of centre-backs. And when you did play it, like when you kind of enforced to at Tottenham, it didn't feel right and stuff.
Anytime you're playing a back three of Masuaku, you're in trouble.
What is that? Yeah, so if you can do it with Cresswell at left wing back, or if you target another player, then yes, it's better. Does it feel flat?
Feels calm. I'm just for me, top 8 next season, and some good cup runs. I think the Conference League is something we should target to win.
So January we heard Nunez, Rafinha, Phillips. Clearly, those three players, considering where they've gone / going, Man City, Liverpool, and possibly Barcelona, were not obtainable.
Nah.
Does it feel like Danjuma's another one been mentioned now, where apparently West Ham are bidding the money, but he's not interested, as in him, the player? Is it more smokescreen stuff? Possibly.
But there's loads of players that, like Emmanuel Dennis, for example. I think that's an attainable target, and it wasn't stupid money, 20 million or whatever people were talking about. But then nothing's happened. So why? Or Breuer. But then I think Breuer is a great player, and a lot of clubs will be after him. So why he'd want to come to us, I'm not 100% sure. And I don't
Chelsea,
think 35 million is
at the moment, Chelsea ain't got...
Why?
Chelsea need bodies, right? So they're not letting Breuer go at the moment, are they?
I don't know if it's a smoke screen from the club. It could well be, because I'm sure all clubs do, but they leak information. But I'm just kind of trying to tune out, if I'm honest with you. Let's see where we go at the start of the season. If we start with the current squad that we have, I'm fine with that. Yeah. Well, we'd know. Plus one striker.
I'm sure you'll be in and around it again.
Top 8 is good for
But it's going to be more difficult again.
Leicester City, they did finish only one place below us at the end, despite having what we'd say a difficult season. No one in yet. Tielemans probably on his way out.
We think... I did a bit of digging into Leicester at the weekend. I know FPL Chancellor had asked what the Fiends were on him, because he says he seems to get his opinion wrong on them all the time. And they are a difficult read because the last couple of years they suffered really badly with injuries. It just feels a bit, I don't know, I kind of want to dig my nails into the table. It feels like something's not right, and it feels to me like, I don't want to say Rodgers on borrowed time, but it feels to me, since those real kind of Man United rumours last December, it feels like there's been a distancing. It feels, I get the vibe as an outsider, and if it's wrong, then I'm wrong and I'm sorry, but I get the vibe that they're not overly comfortable with backing him with more money. That's the vibe I'm getting at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I don't believe that Leicester City at the moment don't have the money, is my point.
Well, yeah, the owners are rich. We know that. The owners are wealthy. I think that they have a good enough squad to do well. Top 8 challenge for Europe. I think they've got firepower. Vardy, Iheanacho, Daka. They've got strikers. They've got players in behind with Barnes and
Maddison, Dewsbury Hall's developed if Tielemans stays.
They've got some good defenders if Fofana can stay fit, and Evans, and fullbacks in Castagne, Pereira. Cassius Michael, love him or hate him, but he's a goalkeeper. Their squad, central midfield, they're a little light.
And Diddy was another one was injured for long periods last season.
There was a lot of talk about bigger clubs coming in for Ndidi. Nothing's happened yet, and you don't hear any rumours about it. Their first 11 or first 12 to 13, 14 players is definitely top 8 and could challenge even more, but you don't really feel like they're going to stay fit all season.
I feel like Leicester could finish anywhere between about 6th and 14th. So to answer Dan's question, no, I don't really know, because I know the capability in there, and they always feel like a team that could go and win 4 or 5 games in a row more than a lot of the other teams in and around them, particularly if obviously they can keep the players fit. Just saying, just vibe-wise, doesn't feel right about them at the moment for me. And again, it should be better this year with no European distraction. Should actually be a bonus for them.
Brighton and Hove Albion.
Yeah, one of the questions we had in was, will they be as strong defensively, having obviously lost Basuma and presumably Cucurella will go as well? My answer to that would be yes. We've got Matt Clark coming back from loan. I think he's going to stay. We'll add a bit more depth for them at centre-back. Webster missed long periods of last season, injured, and he's a very talented player. In terms of Basuma, that's obviously a tough replacement, but we saw towards the end of last season the development of Mwepo and Casado, and I imagine they will add someone else that we've never heard of, probably from South America, in that area as well. So I think Brighton will be fine. The challenge for Brighton will be, having finished 9th last year, where can it go to improve? That's tough to then go and improve on that when everyone around you is trying to do bits as well. But Brighton, I think, will be sustainable and have a similar season. If they can cut out the inconsistency periods, they always have a couple of spells where they go like 6-7 games without winning, don't they? But then they'll have the win at Arsenal, the win at Tottenham back-to-back, and you go, this is a decent football team, right? I mean, they deserve to win both of those games in North London. Arsenal fans might disagree with that, but whatever.
What's your read on Undev coming back from loan?
Yeah.
A lot of people, I don't want to make it an FPL pod, but getting excited at his price.
We will talk about him more.
So you think he's going to be first choice and will do bits this season?
He's record at Royal Union Saint-Gilloise, who we will be speaking about more on a Patreon pod next week, Serge. It's very good.
What's Patreon?
I mean,
patreon.com/FPL.
I mean the team, by the way, not the player. Yes, he's got some interest because he's coming at 5.5. Is he going to be first choice? I don't think a Brighton fan could even tell you at the moment. Let's wait and see what happens in pre-season. I think the thing is with that, even if he was to be, you've got Welbeck and Maupay. Is he going to start every week? Like, no, he's not. They'll rotate that, won't they?
Yep.
Even if it's just Welbeck's out for a while and it's Undev and Maupay, they'll rotate, won't they? So in terms of if you're looking for your guaranteed kind of starter and stuff, it's probably not it. Talented. And so's the boy they've got in as well. There's a couple of guys they've got in. One's gone straight back out on loan, but Julio Enciso, he's an 18-year-old that they've got in from Paraguay. Brighton apparently have become like a big deal down in Paraguay now. Everyone seems to have clocked on. This is a super talented kid. No one's suggesting he's going to be first choice, but this one's got something about him with names to keep an eye on this season.
Wolverhampton Wanderers.
Got a pen and paper.
I'm not going to need it.
No, well, not for now, you don't. Can you go and investigate this Fossen family debt?
Ah, yes. So this is something that I
This is a
clicked
future
on.
money and football podcast.
Yeah, this is a potential problem. But I also don't know. I need to do a little bit more digging. But you know what they say, right? If you owe the bank £1,000, you got a problem. If you owe the bank £1 million, the bank's got a problem. His debt is so big that
Do you want to drop?
whoever owes him that money, it's $40 billion is how much they're talking about. But then he's got assets galore around the world, and one of the things that he owns is
Wolverhampton Wanderers
Football Club. Financially we don't know the ins and outs at the moment. But
the thing is, you can say, "Oh, well, he'll sell the club." Well, him selling Wolves ain't going to fix his problem, is it?
No.
That's the point, isn't it? So, look, there's no financial issue per se with Wolverhampton Wanderers. We're not talking about them being in an Everton position where they've got to sell all their players or anything like that. But there is growing concern, and it doesn't mean that they won't spend. Look, there's 2 months to go yet. But he's very quiet, and they're watching talents who they seem to keep getting linked with. As soon as they get linked with a player, seem to join someone else the next day. It's been like that with Paulinho was going there a couple of weeks ago, and as soon as that got reported, it was like, actually, no, he's going to Fulham. And then you start questioning that as well, and you go, actually, why is he going to Fulham rather than going to Wolves, particularly with the whole Portuguese link and stuff as well. They've got no midfield. João Moutinho technically is not their player at the moment. He's out of contract. We don't know if he's staying. We don't know if he's going. Apparently, he wants a 2-year contract. Wolves only want to offer him 1. You think it's gone June the 30th now. Have you not been speaking? Or I feel like Lage needs to change system, personally, to a back 4 and just reinvigorate it, because there are some good players there. And we must remember, and I know the FPL community certainly has, because I seem to see him in nearly every fucking draft I've seen so far, is Neto. He's obviously a super talent, and they missed for the large majority of last season. It's going to be year 3 for Fabio Silva, which I think is a big one for him, but realistically Wolves do need another forward. I think Raul Jimenez unfortunately has declined. They're short of numbers all across it at the moment. They really are. They're short. And if they don't fix that, again, it's 2 months to go, but if they don't fix that, I think they'll finish bottom 6.
Newcastle, obviously on the up and up. They had a great
Newcastle
second half of the season.
will not finish bottom 6.
And I think the Nick Pope signing was a very, very good signing for them. I was just looking at that and very curious to see what he came in at FPL at, to be honest with you, because he does like to pick up save points as well. But Nick Pope's good signing. Sven Botman's in as well. The Gamera signing in January now. He's had 6 months to bed in and what have you. I think Newcastle will comfortably be top half and challenge top 8. 9th or 10th would be progress for Newcastle next season, surely.
I'm sure Newcastle will do more business before the window closes. I think a right-sided forward is a priority. I think a forward of some description is definitely on the market. We know they had this deal agreed with Ikekete, I think it is, forgive me, from Rems, who the deal was agreed with club and player, but his agent was started taking the piss, and Newcastle pulled the plug. And I think that's really good for Newcastle to have done that, because I think it sends a message. We're not going to have the piss taken out of us just because we got shitloads of money. So good for them for doing that. And I think I explained this on the pod on Friday about, I think Newcastle going slowly is the right path. It's all well and good saying they've got unlimited money. They have got unlimited money. But at the moment, there are still, and we've seen it with the Richarlison deal had to happen last Thursday. It had to happen that day for Everton from the financial perspective to meet up against profit and sustainability, FFP. Newcastle could go and spend 400 million this summer, absolutely fine, no problem, hit FFP regulation because of how Mike Ashley had run the club previously. We know that. But then if they do it again next summer and they still haven't made the Champions League, they're in trouble. They would actually have to sell players in a couple of years' time if they continuously didn't hit top 4. So the slow build for them is definitely the best way to go. Signings like Pope are on point for me. Premier League experienced. Is he probably going to be their title-winning goalkeeper in 4 or 5 years' time? No, probably not. Does he do the job for the next level for them? Yeah, 100%. Botman has got real potential. It's a slightly strange one in the sense that he's left-footed, and I think the feeling was that Newcastle would have preferred to have got hold of a right-sided centre-back, but he fits the profile of what they wanted. So it's an interesting one where I think at the moment Fabian Schär, as it stands, would probably be the first choice to play next to him. He can't keep himself fit for 38 games. So I imagine they will look for another right-sided centre-back. Botman coming in probably means that Target can have Burn. Burn will probably be understudy, I think, for Botman/Target, left-back, left-sided centre-back. If they can add another midfielder to go with Joel Linton and Grameres, add a right-sided forward, and even if it's a backup to Callum Wilson, then yeah, I think they'll be close to Manchester United if Manchester United don't do serious business.
Mm-hmm. Crystal Palace, blueprint of signing good, talented, young English players.
Continues.
They've got Sam Johnston in to help with the goalkeeping situation. I don't know, will he step in ahead of Gator, do you think, straight away?
I would have thought so. One of the reasons for that is as well, Tottenham were going for Johnston. But Johnston wanted assurances of how much he was going to play, which Tottenham obviously weren't going to give him. And obviously he wasn't going to oust Hugo Lloris. So he didn't want to take up the challenge and be second, although it might give him Champions League football if he got injured or whatever. He wasn't going to be first choice. So I don't imagine he's gone to Palace with any thoughts other than he's going to be first choice. I wouldn't say it's a guarantee that he starts, but I'd bet by halfway through the season, at worst, he probably will become first choice goalkeeper ahead of Gator. Malcolm Ebiowi's been bought from Derby as well as a young player, wide player. Wouldn't expect him to go straight into the starting lineup, but there were a lot of clubs linked with him. I certainly know that Tottenham, again, it was a player that they were very much looking at. I think he was at Tottenham's training ground during the summer, but Palace have got him, and he's another talent, and they're just heading in the right direction. Vieira's had a great first season. You don't look at them and think, oh, that'll get worse this year or anything.
Same.
You could only see them having a bad year, really, if they had a lot of injuries, I think.
Agreed.
But they've lost a key player in Gallagher.
Yeah.
It's worth saying. But then we had players last year like Michael Elise, I think many of us like, who didn't end up getting the minutes that most of us thought he would get and will be allowed to step on again this year. Obviously, Eze missed at least the first half of last season. You can make a case that he'll take over, although very different stylistically, will take over from Gallagher in the 10 position, or they'll play with more of a 4-3-3, which they were doing more as the season went on last year. So Palace be fine. I imagine Gallagher, by the way, will stay at Chelsea, would be my guess.
Yep. Brentford are another team who finished below Palace last year, but I don't see them. But they haven't bought anyone. Eriksen's obviously a loss, but that was kind of expected, to be honest with you. But I still don't see Brentford having a more difficult season next year. I think they're a bit. Brentford. I think Brentford are streetwise. I think they're going to stay up.
You mean like we didn't last year with Leeds? This is it,
possibly,
isn't it?
But I think they're quite streetwise. With Leeds, it was always rock and roll. Like on their day, they got battered. Brentford very rarely last season, if ever, you might correct me, did they ever get battered by anyone?
No. I mean, there was a 3-0 loss at United on the Monday night quite late in the season. They just had a bad night.
Yeah, but I think generally they don't get bad.
4-1 at Southampton in January.
I just see them as more Leeds are like, we'll go and try and win the game, and if we lose and get bad, so be it. But Brentford always set
Leeds
out...
were like that.
Brentford set out not to lose, and I think they'll give a lot of teams still a tough game. I
disagree with that, actually.
Well, I don't know. When I say they set out not to lose, they're pragmatic, right? They're not Leeds kamikaze.
I can go with that.
I'm not saying that they set up to get behind the ball. No, they're good at scoring goals and winning games as well. But I mean, they don't throw the kitchen sink at it just for the hell of it. And I think, look, simple question: do you think Brentford will stay up?
Yes.
Yeah, and I suppose that's the point.
But I think a couple of key things. Obviously, the loss of Eriksen is important. From kind of that March period onwards, where they'd had a real bad sort of January, February, and you thought, oh, they're nosediving here. They not only pulled themselves out of it, they finished extremely well. Now, Eriksen was pivotal to that, absolutely pivotal. And so too was David Raya in goal. If you look at Brentford's results with and without David Raya, you can see the difference. And I think all that means is we have to look at Brentford at the moment and think if they have key absentees, potentially they have weaknesses. So Tony stayed fit all season, basically, right? But what if they lost him for 3-4 months? You're potentially looking at a problem with them scoring goals, for example, aren't you? Now, Visser, I think, will probably kick on a bit this year. and Bumo might get some of his shots within the woodwork this season. But if they lose key players quite quickly, this is it. Look at Leeds. Last year would have gone with Phillips, you Bamford up, no problem. But what if you start losing some of them key players? Then that second season syndrome becomes psychological. But I do think most people at the moment who might think that Brentford will go down are doing it basically on the kind of fallacy of its second season syndrome. No, I don't think they'll go down, and their business model suggests that they'll box clever. It looks like they're going to be buying Keane Lewis Potter, who's quite highly rated from Hull. And I imagine that's the way they'll continue to do their business, is picking up from lower leagues and stuff.
Money
these hidden
up.
Gems.
Aston Villa.
Interesting one, really, because I think where they finished out was kind of, would they finish 14th, I want to say, Villa?
One below Brentford. Below expectations.
Yeah, but then to be fair, Brentford had a great finish. I think Villa kind of finished at the bottom end of what would have been acceptable when Gerrard took over for them. If you look at the points difference between who finished 8th in the end, was it Leicester?
Leicester were below us by one.
Between Leicester and Villa, 8th to 14th, like Leicester were at the top of that group and Villa were at the bottom of it. The distance actually wasn't that far. But to kick on any further than 8th or 7th is unrealistic at the moment, I think, unless a couple of teams in the top 6 fall over themselves.
I think at the start of the season, when they obviously got in Danny Ings and got in Leon Bailey and a few other players as well, they spent some money. It was all Grealish's money, I get it. But they did buy a number of players that you thought maybe gave them a chance to kick on. It didn't. Buendia they got in last summer as well.
I've made a couple of really interesting signs. It might be that Villa's business is done. I wouldn't rule it. Do you know what? Villa are one of the teams I hardly ever see get linked with players.
And then suddenly it pops up.
Yeah. And that's what happened again this summer with a couple of players. It was Diego Carlos had been linked, and he was heavily linked with Newcastle in the summer. Another one, left-sided centre-back, but can play right. He's right-footed, though, can play right. It's not clear whether he would be Ming's partner or Conce's partner at the moment. Again, it could be an evolution towards a back three. If you think of Luca Dean and Matty Cash, wing-backs really, aren't they? More than full-backs. So Villa are another one. You look at it, go, could it be a change of system this year? The really interesting one, and it's got me kind of banging my head against the wall a little bit, is Boubacar Kamara, who they got on a free transfer from Marseille. He might be a player many of you haven't heard of. He's broken into the France squad over the last year. I'm knocking my head against the wall. How have Villa got a player who's broke into the France squad in the last year on a free transfer? He's not old, he's young. How have they done that? Where is everyone else? And Lee Jackson spoke about it a lot last year in terms of like they were really missing marvellous Nakamba when he was unavailable. Douglas Luiz is an actual real anchor midfield player, not really doing the business. Good player, but not a natural sitting protector. This guy is it. So Villa defensively might, with Carlos coming in as well potentially, might be a lot better this year. There's no guarantee in that, but I think they're an interesting watch. And again, we'll talk about it tomorrow. They've arguably got the best start in the first couple of fixtures, which they had last year as well, Villa. So we'll be talking about them quite a lot in the weeks to come. Kamara's one really to keep an eye on. He could be a bit of a game changer for them, I think. And I think one of the reasons that they got him was because they do the business so quietly. And they deserve credit for that.
Southampton, I haven't got a clue about who they've bought, mate, to be honest with you. Mr. Ketchup and whatever else.
So Mr. Ketchup, forgive me the pronunciation, Armil Bella Kochop, I think it is. He's definitely going to be part of a lot of FPL team names this year, isn't he?
Yeah,
we can see that happening. They've got him in from Bochum. I don't think he's going to go in as first choice. From what I've seen, they see a lot of potential and progression in him. He's a front foot centre back. He's quite aggressive, which fits into how Bednarek and Salisu play as well. But I probably don't see him ousting either of those two to start the season unless someone come and bought Salisu, which there isn't a suggestion is going to happen. The other two that they've got in really is Mateus Liz, who's a goalkeeper who's going to come in. I think he's either going to be second or third choice. Gavin Bazunu has come in from Manchester City, who's a very highly rated Irish goalkeeper. And I think he'll become first choice. Might be another one, a little bit like Johnston, not a guarantee at the start of the season, but will get that
Eventually.
shirt and become first choice. They've also agreed a deal in principle for another youngster from Manchester City, Romeo Lavia, who's a player I don't know a lot about. He's a holding midfield player. City rate him really highly and are insistent on a buyback clause for him as well. But he's a holding midfield player. Again, probably not going to go straight into the setup. But it's interesting that obviously Rasmus Ankersen went to Southampton from Brentford, and straight away they are going in and unearthing these young gems. Yeah, that seems to be the philosophy. But for them, I'm concerned if they don't buy a forward. We joked about Broja, the points dodger. I don't see many goals in that team at the moment. I'd be a bit concerned about that because they can go on long runs, a little bit like Brighton, where you blinked, they've gone 8-9 games without a win. But they can go the other way, where they'll lose 1 in 8 or 9 as well. Consistency, they're another one. I'm a little concerned for them this year, but I think the model of the club might be going in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm worried. I think I would tip them to be in the bottom 5 this season, with danger of dripping into the bottom 3.
What do I always say?
If
about
someone
them,
came in with 60 million for JWP and he left,
they want more, by the way.
then they'd be gone. Like them without JWP, I think would be
But
relegation.
then they might spend the money intelligently.
You never know.
What do I always say about Southampton?
That they have nice red and white striped shirts.
I don't like playing them.
No, I get that. They play with high energy. Hassan Hüttel's got them always
don't like
pressing.
playing them.
Let's see.
But they give you a chance.
Everton.
Well, Richarlison's gone, and we shouldn't be surprised about that because we've been warning it for a year that one of the jewels, if you will, would have to go. And Calvert-Lewin's injury hit season meant that Richarlison leaving was almost a certainty, basically. I think a lot of us are surprised where he's gone, but it was a certainty that he was going to go. I don't think there'll be many more outs. I know like Tottenham even linked with Anthony Gordon as well. I'd be staggered if that deal happened. I just think Everton want to keep hold of their best younger players at the moment, particularly. So I don't think there'll be any more outgoings, but then I don't think there's too many players in that squad that people actually want at the moment. The signing of Tarkowski is intelligent. It's a good defensive unit. I think stylistically it fits for them at the moment. But I'm very, very concerned for them. I think what they do with... Because they can spend the Richarlison money, by the way, because we're going into a new financial year now. What they do with what they've got available is really important. If they do not improve that squad, they are in trouble.
Leeds also in trouble. Losing Calvin Phillips, losing Rafinha, 2 of their best players. If not their 2 best players, let's say.
Yeah.
It is difficult.
Slightly more infused, though, looking at what they've done so far. So there's a few players that come in, many of you might not know. Mark Rocker's coming from Bayern Munich. He's a player that Bayern didn't want to let go, but basically they didn't consider him first choice, and he's been very well behaved the last couple of years as an understudy player. They don't think he's going to be good enough to physically break into the first team. I had a real look at him at the weekend, and people will take this the wrong way, but you know what it reminded me of? I don't know why I'm asking you that. You don't even know who the fucker is, do you?
It's like, give me some clues.
Reminded me of Xhaka, actually,
Okay.
a little bit. And the positive aspects of Xhaka, I should add into that. But more graceful about it, because he's a Spaniard. And they just are more elegant, aren't they? But he'll come into the midfield area. They've also got in a couple of other players from Salzburg. Brendan Aronson is a young player, and obviously you know the link here. Jesse Marsch was at Salzburg before. 21-year-old midfielder. He's been compared a little bit to Matthias Klick, who, when Leeds first come up, Andy Martin spoke about this a lot in terms of him being kind of midfield runner, late runner into the box and stuff. Technically not fantastic, willing runner, really good defensively in terms of his pressing game off the ball. Will break into the box late. Klick's not been able to do that over the last 18 months or so. So that's a direct replacement. Obviously got problems in the right back area as well in terms of Dallas is going to be out till probably the new year, I think. And they don't think Luke Ayling's probably not going to be fit for the start of the season either. They've also bought Rasmus Christensen from Salzburg as well, who's a very offensive right back. And many of you might have seen this stat knocking about in terms of most shots of fullbacks in the Champions League last year. Yes, more than Trent, more than João Cancelo, 16 shots in the Champions League, which, bearing in mind, this is the whole tournament as well, by the way, bearing in mind they went out in the last 16. So he's averaging 2 shots per game, basically. Now, he's going to be playing for a team who's not going to have as many shots per game to what he was obviously having in that Salzburg team. But a name that I think will get people's attention quickly next year, because of how offensive he'll be. One to watch. He's come in at 5, and he's probably, some of these prices knocking about, you're probably not starting with a Leeds defender at that price. But honestly, one to watch. And they've also agreed a deal with some more players, 2 more players from Salzburg apparently as well. Tyler Adams and I think it's Mohamed Kamara. Forgive me, I might have his first name wrong. Also from 2 more players from Salzburg as well, so we're going to call them Red Bull Leeds, I think, by the time this season kicks off. They are trying to do some business. Listen,
we still need Red Bull to buy Derby, mate.
RB Derby. Derby have been bought, so it's not happening. And we're pleased that Derby look like they've been bought by someone who cares about Derby County. Is good news as well. The thing is, when you do research on new players, and this is just a general rule, when I was looking, there's a lot of players who come into the league who I don't know, you may not know, and you look at them and you read about them, you don't find many negatives. No. The worst thing you do is do the YouTube thing, isn't it? It's like that with Rocker. I'm like, there's something in him that's reminding me of Xhaka. It was just the way he was in terms of his physicality and the way he physically passed the ball. But as I said, looked more elegant about it. But you're looking at it going, he's going to be best holding midfield player in the league. But he's not. No. It's just what YouTube makes everyone look out to be. So you should always be cautious when you're reading up or watching things on new signings that generally they're probably not as good as they make out, unless your name's Erling Haaland.
Thoughts on the promoted clubs now? Fulham, who now have Paulinho in. They've released a few players, but I think obviously Carvalho's gone to Liverpool, but
Carvalho's a loss. It really is. And of course, there's another one to fit into. Liverpool could use him as a 10 as well, or use him in a wide area if they decide to go down that route. Liverpool can't, by the way. Liverpool can't loan him back to Fulham, by the way. So the rules are, and I didn't even realise this till I read up on it in the summer, was because one of the reasons the deal didn't happen in January was Fulham wanted him for the end of the season, and you can't loan back to the same club anymore. I don't know when that rule got put out, but you can't do it.
Is that just within the same country, or is that internationally you can do that?
No, so I think what they could have done, they could have loaned potentially maybe to someone else in the Championship.
Right.
You can't.
The same one you bought from.
Whoever you buy now in a window. So technically, Liverpool bought from a Premier League club, right? Liverpool couldn't loan him to any other Premier League club now.
Okay.
If Bournemouth wanted him on loan, for example, he can't go.
Yeah, I can understand that. Like, you could be doing all sorts of dodgy deals, right?
You know me.
I'd
really like to tighten up loan rules.
You sell us that player for 20 million, and in exchange, we'll go and buy that one for 5 from them and loan him to you because you can't afford to pay them and stuff. Yeah, I get that. It's a fair way of trying to tighten up the transfer regulations.
Good for Fulham in terms of what I'm about to say, that they've got this Paulinho deal through today, and he looks an absolute animal in terms of, he is a monster such. He's 6'3", and he just, looking at him in clips, he looks like he's about 6'7". He looks huge. Physicality in the ball. He's got this really unorthodox style in terms of, you can tell on the turn he's not the quickest, but his stride distance and the size of him. Should have said that Palace have agreed a deal for a similar player whose name escapes me as well, who's similar position. I think I did write his name down. Cheikh Doucouré. I think Palace have got a deal agreed for him, who'll come in as probably the sitter in the midfield 3 as well. This guy is an absolute beast. And the lad from Shakhtar, Solomon, who we'd heard the deal was agreed in May, but didn't happen, is now apparently back on again. He's a winger. But I am really, really surprised that Fulham weren't a team that went in and did their business early. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, they were basically promoted around February, so they knew for a long time that they were going up. There wasn't a doubt about it. And their experience from 2 years ago where they ended up buying about 5 players on loan, didn't they? On the final, it was like Loftus-Cheek, Tete, Areola, Lookman, just throwing everyone in at the last minute, weren't they? Because they hadn't done any business and they realised they weren't going to stay up with what they had. And I don't think that's going to be the case at what happens this year, but I really thought Fulham would have identified that and done some business early, because the depth of the squad is a little on the light side, actually. But I think they will do some business. It's difficult to assess of the 3 of them who will be the strongest. You have to imagine it will be Fulham. And I guess the pointer to bring FPL into it a little bit is, do not judge Mitrovic on what's happened previously. This team will play to his strengths. Doesn't mean he's going to go and get 15, 16 goals or whatever, but this team will play to what Mitrovic is good at, which wasn't happening in the Scott Parker season. We
have Bournemouth now with us in the Premier League. They've picked up 2 players so far, Rothwell, and obviously Ryan Fredericks was released by us, so he's ended up there as well.
Yeah, Joe Rothwell, I was a bit disappointed there wasn't a price knocking about, actually, in one of the releases. One of the ones I was looking for, and I was surprised it didn't come out. So they've got him on a free from Blackburn. They tried to get him in January, but Blackburn wouldn't let him go because they had a chance of promotion themselves at the time. Bournemouth were only offering like 1.5 million or something, so they took the chance and kept him. Obviously, Bournemouth went up and Blackburn didn't. So that deal's now happened. Decent ball carrier, not necessarily ready for this level, but just a real interesting point on Bournemouth will be whether they play with 1 pivot or 2 pivots next season. And I can't give you the answer to that till they do pre-season and Neil Grover comes on correspondent week. And that's going to be a real defining influence, I think, on whether we see a Bournemouth that's more like the Bournemouth that we saw a few years ago, which were quite fun, or whether we get a Bournemouth that becomes more in the style of what we saw at Scott Parker's Fulham, which actually became quite difficult to beat. Even though they went down, we were losing games very narrowly. And that's just something to bear in mind, because Bournemouth play Manchester City and Liverpool very early in this season. So eyes on Bournemouth in terms of how they'll potentially set up. But the reason Rothwell is potentially interesting is if he's cheap enough, him or Billing might be quite interesting, particularly if they play with 1. If it's 2, I think it's probably less interesting. They may also take minutes off of each other. They need to add, definitely. Nat Phillips will probably come back on loan from Liverpool. Liverpool ideally would rather sell, but I think they're aware that if he has a good Premier League season with Bournemouth, they'll probably get their money next year. Ryan Fredericks, your old mate Crapid, Suj. Neil Grover is very much defending this signing as cover at left and right back, and I can understand that, and that's always been seen as.
If he's cover, then it's not a big deal, but he's a risky.
He's risky cover. He's all right. He's not the worst.
He uses pace to get himself out of trouble sometimes, and that's something.
I think his pace gets him in trouble as well. To be honest, they'll need to do some business, but they are certainly searching. Solanke, I think, will have a really good season.
We'll talk about him later in the week because he's priced quite well in FPL. Nottingham Forest, last but not least. Yeah,
so got a little business done now. Obviously,
probably to be honest, one of the most surprising signings when I saw it pop up, like Dean Henderson popping up on loan. I've completely forgot about Dean Henderson. If I'm honest with you,
it's a good sign.
I hadn't thought about him for a whole year, and he's touted as probably one of the best young goalkeepers that we have in this country. I hadn't thought about him one little bit.
So, obviously, when Forest went up in the playoffs, the amount of people going, I'm having Samba as my 4.5 million goalkeeper. Well, A, you didn't know what FPL were going to do with the pricing. And B, you said, fuck it, I don't fancy that, I'm off. So, Samba wants out. So, they've got Henderson done. That's a really good signing for all involved. I think, actually, I disagree with that. It's a good signing for Forest and it's a good signing for Dean Henderson. It's not good for Manchester United because they need another goalkeeper. And how many times do I say it? You want the English cover for the homegrown status and stuff. Taiwo Awoniyi, who's been brought in from another club we're going to cover next week, Union Berlin. And he was a player I think first caught people's attention 12 months ago when Liverpool sold him for 10 million. Everyone went, hold on, Liverpool are selling who for £10 million? Well, he had an extremely good season in Germany. I think he got 20 goals in about 43 appearances in all comps.
Decent.
It's pretty decent. 14 or 15 of them in the Bundesliga. Now, what are we? Bundesliga tax and all that kind of stuff. No idea how it will equate into this league. But certainly Forest, unlike the other two, were coming up without the security of he's my number 9. this guy will be it. Whether it will be as good, it's difficult to say at this moment. They've also bought Julian Bancone, who has been agreed over the weekend from Troyes, who's a centre-back. We don't think that, well, we think Jed Spence, as we said, is probably going to join Tottenham in the next 7 days or so. They are looking at fullbacks at the moment. So Harry Toffolo, Huddersfield is left-sided, but they're looking at him at the moment. Nico Williams, who spent the end of last season on loan from Liverpool at Fulham. Forest are looking at as potentially cover for that right wing-back position. And they're also looking at another defender, Niakate, I believe it is as well. So it looks like they're trying to strengthen the back line first. They've got their number 9 in, then they'll look at the rest. Concern for Forest will be, if you look at the team that played in the playoff final, Jed Spence, Joe Garner, Zinchenko, Keenan Davis all played in that final, all on loan. None of them are likely to be at Forest next year. They might get a re-agreement with Manchester United for Garner, possibly. But at the moment, these aren't their players. You've got 4 players from the team that come up aren't there. So they need work.
Baby Trent, popping up.
What, Nico Williams? To be honest, I've seen a lot of progression in him. I thought it was very good in a couple of Wales games I watched over the summer, actually. It looked like he'd progressed quite a bit.
Good. That's a wrap-up of all 20 teams in the Premier League.
And obviously Liverpool can let him go because they brought Calvin Ramsey in.
Yeah.
It was in most of our Fantasy Scotland teams last year. It's a cheap plug for that game.
So, do you want to answer a couple more Twitter questions that we've had in? Let's have a look, listeners. And just before we do, what have they got to look forward to for this week?
I don't know. It depends on FPL.
Tomorrow fixtures, though.
Tomorrow we're going to have a deeper dive.
Not really depend on FPL, but
just the fixtures in terms of good points, hop on, hop off points potentially at the teams again specifically, rather than, I mean, we can look at Kane to Haaland or vice versa, that kind of thing. But particularly the fixtures. Wednesday we're going to have a full look at the pricing.
Assuming that it's open, but we've still got a lot of players to look
be honest,
at.
I think we'll do it anyway because we've got enough.
Yeah.
Thursday, ideally, chip strategy, but I do need the game to be open for that. I do not want to record a chip strategy pod and then they open the game in the evening and it's all different. Like, sod that. So we won't do a chip strategy pod till the game is
the worst
open.
case is like, what if we get an extra wild card for the World Cup or any different changes in chips and that kind of thing? We need to know that information before we start recording that.
There has been some speculation of a few potential things. There's been speculation of double the chips, first and second half of the season, potentially. The word limitless I've heard mentioned. I'm not aware of any different. I've got no ITK on this, by the way. I don't know a thing. No one tells me nothing. Unlimited over the World Cup, as you mentioned, is something I think they probably will do. Again, I don't know if that's going to be the case. So I'm not doing chip strategy until I know all of that. So it may get pushed to next week. The idea is on Friday, we'll have a proper look at first drafts. And within that, if the game is open, we'll look at what a template is. But again, if the game's not open, we'll probably put that off till next week and do something else. But the idea is fixtures tomorrow, pricing Wednesday.
Indeed. Subscribe wherever you are. Hit the notification bell, ding, 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 and you'll get notified as soon as our shit goes live. Questions, Adam35. No. FPL nerd. Come on. He says, how were your holidays?
It's all right, mate. What about you?
I've been here all 4 weeks that you've been away.
Make out like you didn't go anywhere. And I love it. He's pissing off.
That was the long Queen's bank holiday weekend. I went to warm up the Cotswolds for you for a couple of days. Other than that, I've been here. I've been working every day.
I picked the right way to go, in fairness, as well.
It was not too bad when I was there, mind, to be honest, as well. But yeah, I have the big disadvantage, and you'll see this when Harry goes to school, is when you have to start tying your holidays around school terms. So annoying that you have to do that. So I've picked...
We'll just pay the fine.
I've picked the first and last week. How much is the fine? I have no idea.
I bet the fine's less than the extra for the holiday, isn't it?
Quite possibly. I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
You should know this as a money man.
No, but I've never put myself in that situation. I think I've only had to ever pull him out of school once or twice. Once for a wedding, I had to pull him out on a Friday, and the kick of the school didn't give a shit on that day. But then they were like 4 and 5 at the time. When they're little, what difference does it make? To be honest, like when they're tiny. But yeah.
Yes, holiday was great. Thank you very much.
Where did you go in the Cotswolds? Did you go to Soudley Castle?
We stayed in Morton in Marsh. Did we go where?
Soudley Castle.
No, I don't think so. It was no castle.
Went to Bourton on the Water.
Yeah, been there.
splashed your feet in
Did we go
in
boating
the
in the
river.
water? We went to an indoor thing there.
Not the model village.
Which had a gymnasium in it. Yeah, we went to a model village somewhere.
Classic model village.
I
wonder if they do that
some
in
nice
other
dinners,
countries.
had some shit dinners,
Fair
some
play.
nice lunches, some shit lunches. Really nice actually. We've been doing a lot in London when we've been here as well.
Adam 350 says who still has the most to do to achieve their targets this window? Manchester United, surely.
Possibly, but
I'm confident they will.
What's Manchester United's target? Is it fourth?
It's got to be top 4.
It can't be higher than that.
No,
as it stands.
It's got to be 4th. Yeah.
I'd arguably throw Wolves Everton into that mix as well in terms of concern about what they may what's Wolves' target this year? They finished 10th. It's got to be to do that again, isn't it?
Top off.
Can't see that at the moment. What would be Everton's target? Not being a relegation fight. At the moment, I can't see that either. I'd put all 3 promoted teams in there as well. They've all got to do business. And to be fair, in their cases, they definitely will. You might be right in Manchester United, actually.
FPL Simo says a question for you both. Which teams would you like to be drawn with in your club's European competitions? So I'll answer that first, James. I've got a Scooby-Doo's in the Conference League and I couldn't care less.
I've got one for you.
Who's in there?
Fiorentina.
Okay.
Bit of Florence.
Have them, whatever. I'm so not bothered because we'll get out of the group. Is it top 2 in the group? Go through?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean...
But you want to win that group again, don't you? So you missed that last 32 round. That's Andy, that, isn't it?
Yeah. It definitely does help.
Celtic or Rangers would be the one for me that I'd love to get.
Because you've never been?
I have been to Parkhead.
Oh, okay. You haven't been to Rangers?
Only in a friendly. And I have been to Ibrox. Govan is the scariest place in the world that I've ever been to. That's a story I definitely would rather save for Patreon. No, it's a beautiful place, really. Yeah, Rangers or Celtic. I'd love to do a European night at one of them too. Would be great. PSG is the big one that we haven't played in the Champions League. So PSG.
Lovely jubbly. And that is what we'll call a wrap, sir.
Fresh.
We'll be back at you tomorrow. Patrons, we've got a Q&A day today, James.
It is,
so we'll be answering all of the Patreon questions a little later on. If you want to join our Patreon, head over to patreon.com/Planet FPL. If you follow James on Twitter at Planet FPL Pod, he has tweeted yesterday it was, the schedule for the month, what we've got coming up, what you've got to look forward to on Twitter, on Patreon as well. We've got European week coming up where we're looking at some of the big stories in European football, more fantasy content. I was going to say FPL content, but we've got some Sky stuff coming later this month as well.
You should just let me do this gig, shouldn't you?
Yeah.
So we've got Champions Week next week on Patreon. We'll be looking at 5 stories across Europe. I mentioned a couple of them on this
European week.
What did I say?
Champions Week.
Yeah, that's what
that's
I meant.
after.
European week, Thank you. And we're going to bring this is dependent on FPL launching, our Patreon content to the front of house to show you what we do on Patreon on a normal week this week. The week after, Suj is on going on holiday again. We going this time?
Again?
Yeah,
we going this time. When's the last time I went on holiday? When's the last time I went on holiday?
Cotswolds.
Yeah, but we weren't recording then.
Where are you going next?
We weren't recording then. I'm going to Wales.
Is that where you're going?
Yeah,
so
man.
You can still record?
Nah, mate.
Nah?
Do you think they got internet in Wales?
Wow. You've blown that in the valleys, haven't you, mate?
It's fine.
I'm
going to Pembrokeshire. I only yesterday looked on a map where Pembrokeshire is. You couldn't go further west.
I can confirm that I've been to Wales and you're right, they don't have internet.
It's all good. It's very far away.
It's all right. I'll be doing 5 interviews that week as well, Champions Week, which is going to include 5 interviews with people who had outstanding fantasy seasons last year, including last year's official FPL winner, Jamie Pigott. Savanch, who finished second. Got Dave Simple Goals going to come on. And because he finished second in Sky Fantasy, we'll look a little more, it'll be more Sky Fantasy focused pod, but we'll touch on FPL and comparisons. He had a great FPL season as well. Finished top 20k as well, I think. Our advanced tier patron mini league winner, Cole Bonds, is going to be coming on the pod. Andy Martin won the correspondent week mini league, so he's going to be coming on twice in 2 weeks. He's on the following week, 20 pods, 7 days. correspondent week, one on each Premier League club. Then we're into August, and we go,
Last
go,
week
go.
of the season. Indeed, it will be. By then, we'll know what the template is, and we'll all have it. So make sure you're subscribed. Join our Patreon if you wanna, and we'll be back to you tomorrow.
All these attractive prices, but yeah, it might still end up being quite a template. I think. Yeah.
Stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks everyone. Good to be back. Be nice to each other. Cue music, please, man child.